Welcome to Sleep Tight Frights, the place where bedtime stories don't always end sweetly. I'm Evergrey, your storyteller in the shadows. Each tale is a little strange, a little spooky, and just creepy enough to keep you peeking over the covers. So settle in, close your eyes, but don't fall asleep just yet. This is the podcast where bedtime stories always come with a warning. Tonight we're heading to the coast where the wind howls, the tide creeps in, and something ancient waits beneath the sand. It's just a beach, they said. Just a skeleton, they said. But what if bones could remember? What if they came back, bone by bone, name by name? This is the skeleton whale in the sand. It started with a storm, not the slow kind that you hear coming for hours, not a drizzle or a thunderclap. This one arrived like it had been dropped from the sky, angry, loud, and fast. At 10:14 in the morning, the clouds rolled in like smoke across Tern Bay. By 10:22, the streetlights flickered on in the middle of the day. By 10:31, the rain hit sideways, hard enough to shake windows and split tree limbs. Carolyn's mom said she hadn't seen a storm like this since she was a child. Her dad paced the living room, watching the trees bow in their yard. The power cut out before lunch, and just as quickly as it came, the storm was gone. By 1, the sky had cracked back open, blue, cloudless. The air smelt like wet bark and ocean salt. Kids ran outside to check their bikes. Parents raked fallen branches. The fire department came to clear a tree that had crushed a swing set at the elementary school. But no one knew yet what the storm had truly uncovered. The next morning, news spread like a wildflower down the coast. Something's been uncovered at Tern Beach. Not driftwood, not jellyfish or storm-battered fishing nets. Bones. Giant bones. They curved across the sand like a broken ribcage, each one taller than a standing kid, half buried in the wet shoreline. Some people said they looked like shipwrecked timbers. Others swore it was a whale, but the skull was what made everyone stop. It was massive. Long-jawed, its eye sockets were wide and deep, like tunnels meant for something with too much seeing, and its teeth, not smooth and wide like a blue whale's, but jagged, stone-like, pointed, like it hadn't just filtered plankton, but hunted. The beach was roped off by noon. The local news showed drone footage. Paleontologists were called. Prehistoric, one woman said. Possibly a unique deep-sea variation, another guessed. An extraordinary, once-in-a-century find. The kids watched the news in the living rooms with mouths open. Whale bones in their town? Carolyn leaned forward. Her little brother said, "It looks like a dinosaur." Her dad just said, "Bet that brings the tourists back." But that night, something happened. No cameras caught it, no scientists reported it, but in the morning, the ropes were gone. The experts had left, no press, no warning, just the bones, still there, still resting in the sand. Only now, they had moved. Carolyn wasn't supposed to go to the beach. After the storm, the mayor had closed the shoreline and her parents made it clear. No wandering, the dunes are unstable. But Carolyn had to see it. Everyone was talking about the bones. Her friend Owen said it was taller than his dad. Her neighbor Mina said it made her ears feel weird, like pressure before thunder. And Juniper swore she saw something move inside the skull. So after lunch, Carolyn told her mom she was going to Mina's. Instead, she biked to Tern Beach, and she wasn't the only one. The path to the water was lined with muddy footprints. Someone had pushed the caution signs aside. The rope that had once circled the skeleton now lay tangled like seaweed in the sand. The whale, if it was a whale, was even more enormous than the videos made it seem. Ribs arched out of the earth like stone claws. The spine curved up, then dipped again into the wet sand, and the skull faced inland now, like it had turned slightly, like it was listening. Kids had already started climbing it. Some stood between the ribs, arms wide like they were in a cage. Others balanced on vertebrae like stepping stones. Someone tossed a beach ball over the curve of the spine and shouted, "Goal." No one cared if it was safe. It felt inviting. Carolyn didn't climb, not yet. She walked to the edge of the site, eyes scanning the bones. It felt wrong to touch them, but she couldn't look away. They didn't seem dead. They didn't seem old. They seemed patient. Owen found something near the base of a rib, a smaller bone, pale and smooth, no bigger than a soda can. "Check it out," he called. "I'm keeping this one." He dropped it into his backpack and zipped it up. "Like a souvenir," he added. Carolyn's stomach turned. "You probably shouldn't take..." But he had already run off, laughing. He wasn't the only one. By the time the sun began to dip, the kids had pocketed dozens of fragments, a jaw hinge, a vertebrae slice, even a chipped tooth someone claimed was definitely fossilized. By the time Carolyn left, the skeleton looked thinner, not shorter, not damaged, just emptier, as if the bones knew what was missing, as if they were waiting to get it back. That night, the tide came in high. The waves crashed louder than usual. The wind howled through the cedar trees. Carolyn lay awake, the sound of surf twisting in her ears. When she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of sand shifting, of bones turning, of something giant inhaling. Carolyn heard the news the next morning. It came in the form of a text from Mina. "Did you hear about Owen?" She hadn't. But 5 minutes later, she was sitting on her bike, pedaling as fast as she could to Owen's house. The ambulance was already gone. Only his dad stood in the driveway, talking to a police officer with tired eyes and a clipboard. Mina met her on the sidewalk, pale and out of breath. "He fell," she whispered, "in the morning, in his driveway." "Fell?" "Tripped over nothing, just went down." "So what's the big deal?" Mina swallowed. "His arm didn't bend." "What?" "Like he tried to catch himself, but his wrist flopped, like it wasn't there." Carolyn blinked. "Broken?" Mina shook her head. "They said it wasn't broken, just gone." Carolyn's breath caught. "His wrist?" "His bone." "What?" "His parents took him to the hospital. The doctor said Owen's radius is missing, like it was scooped out of his arm. No bruising, no blood, just hollow." Carolyn didn't speak, because she remembered what Owen had taken, a small bone, the souvenir, the ones he slipped into his backpack, and she remembered the skeleton's spine, how it looked thinner, like something had been removed, and how the tide had surged that night. By noon, the town was buzzing. The hospital had released a statement. They were investigating a rare and unusual skeleton anomaly. The scans were sent to a university. Reporters asked questions. Owen didn't answer, because Owen was no longer home. That night, his parents found his bedroom window open, his bed empty, his shoes still beside the nightstand. No sign of a struggle, just gone. Carolyn went to the beach the next morning. She didn't tell anyone. The sand was still wet from the high tide. The skeleton was still there, but something had changed. Near the middle of the spine, exactly where a human radius might belong, a new bone had joined the whale. Slightly paler, slightly smaller, perfectly placed. The whale had taken it back. They held an emergency meeting at the town hall. The mayor, the principal, the beach safety officers, everyone had the same questions and no answers. Owen was still missing. His parents were still searching. And no one could explain how a 12-year-old could lose a bone without a mark. The beach was officially closed. Signs posted, police taped, stretched. But that didn't stop the kids, especially not the ones who had taken something. Mina couldn't stop thinking about it. She hadn't told anyone, but she'd picked up a bone too, smaller than Owen's, curved like a rib from a squirrel maybe. She wanted to make it into a necklace, but after what happened to Owen, she hid it under her bed in a sock. That night, she heard it. A low thrum, like something humming in the sand, and a whisper. Not outside her window, not in her room, inside her pillow. She sat upright. Her neck ached, her legs tingled, and the whisper came again, soft as a seashell's song. Give it back. Mina didn't sleep. She couldn't. When the morning came, her mom found her on the living room floor, curled in a blanket, pale and shaking. She said her back hurt, that she couldn't feel her legs right. Her mom called the nurse, and they lifted her to the couch. When they lifted her to the couch, she folded, collapsed in on herself, and didn't wake up. The paramedics came. The diagnosis was the same. No trauma, no bruises, just missing bones. Her pelvis gone. Not shattered, not removed, erased. The town panicked. 2 kids in 3 days, each had visited the beach, each had taken a piece. Carolyn stood at the end of her street, staring down at the hill towards the sea. Even from blocks away, she could hear it now. The ocean's rhythm had changed, still rolling, still crashing, but layered beneath the roar, a new sound. Something deeper, slower, wet bones shifting beneath the tide, and a voice. Not like Owen's, not like Mina's, the skeletons. I remember, it seemed to say. I am coming back together. And somewhere, in the dark swirl of sea and silence, Carolyn caught her name. The mayor had had enough. Enough whispers, enough wild theories, enough kids going missing while everyone waited for answers that never came. So she made a decision. We'll bulldoze the beach, she said in a press conference, voice chipped and furious. It's just bones. They belong to a museum, not under children's beds. The crowd murmured. Reporters scribbled. And behind her, the chief of police frowned. That night, they brought in the machines. Carolyn and her mum watched it live on TV. The cameras showed bulldozers parked at the edge of Tern Beach, headlights pointed at the sand. Men in hard hats stood by with shovels and surveying gear, but the skeleton, it wasn't visible anymore. The tide had pulled in too high. Probably buried again, said the newscaster. Tomorrow's dig should bring it up. But Carolyn's stomach twisted. She knew better. It hadn't been buried. It had hidden. The mayor didn't go home after the press conference. She stayed in her office reviewing maps and safety budgets. Around 1:11 a.m., a janitor found her, face down, cold, silent. She hadn't fallen. She hadn't tripped. Her ribs were gone, every one, removed without a single cut. The medical examiner quit the next day. When the sun rose, the tide had retreated again, and the skeleton was back, this time even more complete. The rib cage glistened with a new set of curved bones, not quite like the rest, human-shaped, tidy, precise. Carolyn stood behind the caution tape, unnoticed. She saw a spot where the mayor's ribs had slotted in, and she understood. It wasn't random. It wasn't finished. It was collecting. Every piece returned made it stronger. Every bone restored brought it closer to what it once was. And Carolyn could feel it now, the way the waves seemed to breathe, the way the sand shifted in the air, the way her own spine pricked whenever she turned back to the sea. She turned to go home, but the wind whispered behind her, soon. Carolyn tried to stay away from Tern Beach. She really did. She avoided the coastline on her walk home. She closed her blinds at night. She didn't watch the news, but the dreams came anyways. In them, she stood on the beach, barefoot, alone. The wind didn't move. The waves didn't crash. The world held its breath. And beneath her feet, the bones hummed. She could feel them beneath the surface, like cables or veins, running through the sand, waiting. Then, every time she'd hear it, a sound that wasn't a voice, but carried meaning anyways. It said names: Owen, Mina, Mayor Bell, and then Carolyn. Her own name drawn out like a breath. She always woke up gasping, the sheets tangled and damp with sweat, but worse than the dreams were the signs in the real world. At school, her locker wouldn't open. When they finally pried it loose, the inside was wet, like it had been soaked in salt water. In her backpack, a dried kelp strand curled between her notebooks. She hadn't been near the ocean in days. Juniper noticed too. "You look tired," she said one morning. I don't sleep well anymore." Juniper lowered her voice. "Do you still hear it?" Carolyn hesitated. "In dreams. I don't sleep at all," Juniper admitted. "I'm scared I won't wake up." They went past the town library. As soon as they passed the community bulletin board, Carolyn froze. There was a missing poster. Not for Owen, not for Mina, for her. It showed a photo from last year's school play, her in a silver costume smiling under the stage lights. The words read, "Missing, Carolyn Pierce, 12, last seen, Tern Beach." She tore it down. "Did your mom put that up?" Carolyn shook her head. "No one's looking for me," she whispered. "Not yet." Juniper touched her shoulder gently. "And let's keep it that way." That evening, Carolyn walked the bluff trail alone. She didn't mean to head to the beach, but her feet drifted. By dusk, she just stood at the top of the dune, staring down. The skeleton glimmered in the fading light, more complete than ever, only a few bones still missing, and in her head something stirred, a thought that didn't feel like hers. "You fit, you belong. Come lay down." She backed away quickly, but the tide far below curled inward just once as if reaching. The moon was full. It cast long silvery shadows across Carolyn's room, shadows that looked like ribs. She pulled the blanket over her face, tried to forget the skeleton, the song, the missing bones, but the melody wouldn't stop. It creaked beneath her floorboards. It whispered through her window screen. It called her name, not loudly, but constant, like the way your own breath fills silence. "Carolyn, Carolyn, Carolyn." She couldn't take it anymore. She pulled on her hoodie and crept downstairs. No lights, no shoes, only the glow of the moon to guide her. At the end of the street, she turned down the path she swore she'd never take again. Tern Beach was empty. The ocean still. The whale's skeleton waited, now fully unearthed, complete, except one small gap remained. On the left side of its skull, where a bone thinner than a finger was missing. The stapes, the smallest bone in the body, the one that lets you hear. Carolyn stepped closer, heart hammering. The skeleton moved. Not a shift, not a quake. It arced. Its spine rippled just once like a sea creature stretching in sleep, and its eyes, those cavernous hollows, turned towards her. "You came," it said, not aloud, inside. Its voice was the roll of the tide and the groan of old wood. "I didn't mean to," Carolyn whispered. "We called. You answered." "I was trying not to." "You carried us," it said. "Our breath, our name, our sound." The air went still. A gust swept the dune. The sand pulled inward, and suddenly Carolyn was on her knees. The whale bones glowed faintly beneath her, just for a second, like something deep below had lit a lantern. "We gave you dreams," the voice said. "Now give us silence." It wanted her, not just her body, her listening, her ability to hear the call and pass it on. But she wasn't ready to be forgotten. She wasn't ready to disappear like Owen or Ellie or Mina, who was already fading. "I won't," Carolyn said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the dry kelp strand from her locker. She wrapped it around her wrist like a bracelet. "This is all you get," she said. The bones shuddered. The song rose, louder, desperate, but Carolyn forced her feet backwards. With every step, the sound grew fainter. With every heartbeat, the beach seemed less alive, until she was back on the road, and the skeleton stopped humming. In the morning, the tide had swallowed the beach whole. No bones, no song, just salt in the air and a strange print in the sand, like something had twisted and turned, looking for the last piece and given up. Carolyn still dreamed of it sometimes, the hush beneath the waves, the eyes in the surf, the missing sound, but she never hears her name anymore. because she learned something no one else knew. You don't answer the tide, you let it ask, and then you walk away. Did you know real whale bones can wash up on beaches? It's true. While most ocean bones are carried away by current or eaten by sea creatures, sometimes entire skeletons end up ashore, especially after storms. But here's the spooky part. In some coastal legends, especially from Norway and Iceland, beached whale bones were believed to carry ghostly energy. People thought the souls of drowned sailors or the whale's own spirit could haunt the remains if disturbed. And in some Inuit stories, whale spirits would call back their lost bones piece by piece, even if they were taken far away. So if you ever find a bone in the sand, don't pocket it. You never know who or what might come looking for it later. Carolyn left the beach that night, but the ocean never forgets, and neither do bones. If you ever find yourself at low tide with the moon high and the wind still, and you hear a low creaking from beneath the surf, take one step back, then another. Don't turn around, because the sea might be looking for a name it hasn't claimed yet. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and follow the podcast. Leave a review if you're brave enough. Thank you for listening to Sleep Tight Frights. It means more than you know, to us and to the things that listen back. I'm Ever Gray, your guide through the shadows, and if you felt something was watching as the story unfolded, you're not alone. They remember the ones who listen, they wait for the ones who return. So come back soon. Sleep tight if you can.